Today we're going to be talking about building your author value ladder. So if this is a concept that you haven't heard about before, this is something that every business person needs to be aware of as a marketing, and really it's a core concept for building your business. And then again, we want to remind you that that is what we are doing, is we are building businesses here as authors and publishers of our own, our own works. We'll want everybody to be empowered to be the publisher. And I think every business needs a value ladder, and we're going to get into what that is and how it works and why it's important and all of that. And it's all about increasing your income without selling more books necessarily. It's you don't need to sell a ton more books in order to have a vast increase in income. And you might be thinking, how in the world is that possible? This might be a new concept to you. Oh, if you would silence your phones, so we don't bother everybody. So that's we're going to be talking about how to increase your income without selling a lot more books. So this all came about because Darlene and I have talked about it for years, that the number one question that we've gotten over the years has been, how do I do this whole publishing thing? How do I publish my own book? How in the world do I tackle all of the things that are involved with publishing a book? But the second most asked question that we get asked is, how do I sell more books? How do I market my book? Which really the question is not, how do I sell more books? It's how do I make more money? How do I, that's really the question that's being asked. And if we really dig deep, the real question is, how do I make more of an impact? Because Darlene and I believe that's what this is about. It's not. I don't think any of us, most every author we work with doesn't write a book because they want to make a ton of money. It's because they want to have an impact. And if there's any author I know out there that has made a dramatic impact on people's lives, it is my wife, Darlene Shortridge. So here she is.
Hey, so I want to, and few of you have heard the story a little bit, but when I'm speaking at a conference, a writer's conference or whatnot, I get asked all the time, why aren't you with a big publisher? Why aren't you with this? Why aren't you with that? And I pretty much always say, if I had been signed with this book with a major publisher, I wouldn't be here helping you today. It's just how it goes. That it would be the nature of things. And the other thing that I really felt compelled to share with you is our books, what we write, they have the capacity to help people for years and years. And I was reminded the other day, actually a few hours ago even, I was on the phone with someone who had read my book, and this book here that you're seeing, Until Forever. Now, I wrote this in 2006. It's to give you an idea of how old this book is. And she told me it changed her life. This book changed her life. And I was with friends this past weekend, Sunday, and I sat there and listened to how someone else telling me that they had recently read this book, and it profoundly affected them. And I was just like, the things that we write, the messages that we get out there, and our purpose is to help people, period. I don't sob when I get a royalty check deposited in my account, and I've had one almost straight for 10 full years every single month. Have not missed a month of royalty deposits. And I don't even know they happen anymore. I just know that maybe we have some extra money in the account. I don't know. But when I get these emails, when those types of stories truly impact me, knowing that the words that I wrote, and that's what this is about. And us helping you get your message out there, helping you get your story out there. That's just I mean, it's really is a calling. I consider it a calling, and sometimes I question what Dan and I are supposed to be doing, but then I look at the impact that all of you are having on the world with what you're writing, with the stories that you have to share, and your hearts to help people. And just having a small part in that is incredible. So we want to help you become successful. You know, we want your books to sell, and I get that every week, I won't say every day, but at least every week, at least once a week, I get asked, Darlene, I need to sell more books. How can I do this? And so this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing Author Underground. We've had Author Underground for a year now. We don't make extra money on this. This is not something that we've made a dime from yet, but we did it to help you. We've done this to help you to become more successful, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it because we believe it's having an impact. So we're going to be teaching on these types of things that are going to help you get out there and get your message to more people. So like Until Forever, that is coming up on, well, how many years now? It'll be 15 years, I guess. Something like that, 15, 16 years. I'm not going to do the math. But it's your book can have just as great of an impact as what I've written here. So you're doing a great thing. So Dan is going to be teaching most of this. This is in his wheelhouse. So I'll interject here and there. But Dan, back at you.
All right. So one of the ways that you are going to be able to make more of an impact is by embracing this concept of the value ladder. The value ladder helps you to make more of an impact. So if you look on the diagram right there, this is the diagram. Now I have to give kudos to ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson specifically, one of the co-founders of ClickFunnels, which is a software company, and he teaches a lot of marketing concepts, and this was one of the core concepts that he teaches. And there's plenty of people, plenty of his students that reteach this as well. And we are very, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to impart this concept to authors specifically, and for us to talk about how we can utilize this to make more of an impact. So on the diagram, if you look, you see on the one side that goes up, the value is increasing. And then across the bottom, the price level is increasing. And then you have a ladder that goes up. Okay. So this is the basic idea, the basic visual here. And what's happening is that it's basically the more value you add, the more you can charge, and then therefore the more money you make. So kind of a simple concept, but let's see how it applies to, first, we're going to give an example, their example, this is Russell's example of a value ladder for a dentist. And then, and hopefully you'll be able to start seeing some parallels here with how this can affect you as an author. So the value ladder for a lot of dentists out there, you see the mailers, you get the mailer cards that come in, or for anybody who's like Googling a dentist in their area, they're probably going to see a Google ad pop up in the listings. But a lot of dentists will offer a free teeth cleaning it's complimentary teeth cleaning to come in and try out their dentist office. And so that becomes the first tier of their value ladder. And for many of them, it's a free offer that they have. And then once they get and the whole idea is to bring people into the dentist office, get them in the chair, and then they can go and they can start progressing people who have a need to progress through the value ladder. And sometimes they'll start off with just a basic whitening. Of course, if there's any cavities or anything that has to be dealt with, that is, for sure is going to be brought into the sale, so to speak. But one of the things that will help them increase their value that they give to the customer, as well as the amount of money that they charge, and therefore the amount of money they make. They'll offer like teeth whitening and say, oh, wow, I noticed that you've got, some staining going on your teeth. Have you considered having whitening done? Oh, how does that work? Well, we have whitening strips, or we got, the little trays with gel or whatever it is they sell. And then so they'll upsell or upgrade to whitening. And then they may say, I noticed your teeth are a little bit crooked. Did you have braces when you were a kid? They didn't quite do the trick. So maybe we can do a custom retainer. And then ultimately it may lead to have cosmetic dentistry done. So the idea being that if we bring them in the door and then get them acclimated to our services, and then we introduce them through the process of them getting to know us and like us and trust us, which you got to admit, for a dentist, that's pretty important, especially because you want those people in the chair to know, like, and trust you, to a great extent. So that is a value ladder for a dentist. So how in the world does this apply to us? So we're going to give first an example value ladder for a fiction author, and we're going to use Darlene as the example here. Okay, did you want to hop in?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
okay.
I'm going to talk a little bit about mine.
Okay, so here is the value ladder for Darlene Shortridge. So I just took it and I slapped in some little images to show you what we use in the value ladder and how that developed over a number of years.
Okay, so for me, what we have done is I have written many books, so I have some more choices that some of you may not have. What we did is we have a free book offer, not just a short story, but a free book. And I don't recommend that unless you have multiple books out. And I think Dan is going to talk about some of those things later. But for me, that's what I have, is I have that free book offer. And once people sign up for the free book, then my next level in my ladder is the book itself. And so they get the free book, and then they can buy Until Forever. And Until Forever, I retail it for $15. So, but what often happens, especially at an event or even on Amazon, is I have my books bundled together. So there's 6 books in the Women of Prayer series, and they can buy those as a set. So my next, it goes the book, the free book, the purchase of the first book in the series, and then they can buy the whole set of those books. Okay, so that's 3 steps in the ladder, and that ranges from free to $80. So you'll see how much that has grown. I have a lot of people who buy the sets of books. Then after the sets of books, we go into coaching, and coaching could be me helping another author. It could be me helping an entrepreneur write their story. It could be sharing for a group somewhere, just storytelling itself, and which kind of takes us into the next category. But that coaching can range anywhere from like $100 to say $1,000 that I make on coaching, easy. And then for speaking, I go and I speak for events and things like that, and I get paid, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to go and speak. So you can see how that progression keeps going. And what happens is and some people I see say, hey, I want to speak, but you have to kind of build up these other portions of your ladder so you earn the right to command those kinds of fees. And obviously there's some speakers who earn that without having written a book, but that's an entire different platform. We're talking about an author doing this and starting out as an author and moving into speaking. So, and then for me, I even have more rungs on the ladder, because this does not have to end. Okay, you don't have to stop at 4 rungs or whatever this is, but I also move into ghostwriting. And ghostwriting is 5 figures for me. and I have multiple projects going on at any given time, or can, depending on the speed on which one project is going. So you can see where you can develop being an author into something that brings in a whole lot more income. Okay, so that is how my my value ladder works. So
something I was reminded of, I just thought of this, and I think it's going to be, I think it's important to share this, is that when I first was introduced to this concept, I saw the little diagrams and I saw the little, the example with the dentist and how that works, and it's like, okay, well, that makes sense for the dentist. And then I also saw an example for somebody in like the coaching field or consulting field, like the information marketing field, kind of a similar field to what we do, what Darlene and I do with 40-Day Publishing, and saying, okay, well, I can kind of see how that would work. And then I saw their example of the value ladder and what they had, kind of like what we're showing here right now. And I made the mistake of putting in my mind saying, well, okay, well, I guess then I have to have my free thing here, and I have to have my book here, and I have to have a in this case it says storytelling, which represented like that one-on-one coaching. So I have to do one-on-one coaching, and then this is speaking, so then I have to do speaking. So I was looking at their example and putting my business into it and saying, okay, well, I have to do this, this, and this, but that's not what it is. We want you to look at this and know you can interchange, you put whatever works for you in there. So each person, each of you out there, you have to look at it and say, okay, how does this apply to me? How do I build my value ladder? Your free book, your not free book, but your book is probably going to be at that, that second tier. Okay, you're probably, so we're definitely going to want you to have something for free that people can get just by giving you their email address. I mean, you've heard me harp on that over and over and over, but that's definitely the bottom tier. And then the next one is going to be that book, the ebook or the paperback, somewhere between $5 and $15. That is kind of an automatic setup for all of you. But after that, the world's your oyster. It's whatever is your forte. It's your field. It doesn't have to be speaking. It could
and to give you,
it could be,
right. And to give you an idea, so for instance, a lot of you I'm looking on here, and Randy, there's quite a few of you who have one book or will have one book, and you're like, well, I can't do a set. Well, actually, you can do a set. Okay. What you can do is you can bundle the soft cover, hardcover, and an ebook. They have 2 to gift. So when we do our children's books, like I have one children's book, I'll do the hardcover, the soft cover, and a coloring book as a bundle. People buy it. And I had an author ask me, well, that's like buying the same book twice. I'm like, it is, but they do buy when you have a deal because I price it less than it would be individually, and then they can give gifts. So they actually will buy those bundles. Those bundles sell. Everyone likes a deal. And so think of it, kind of outside of the box. Don't think of it, as like Dan was saying, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. And not only that, but say you're coaching and you're like, well, I'm going to do what Darlene's doing in the coaching. Well, I've been writing books for how many years? I've been working with authors for many, many years. And this is something that I have gotten better and better at. So when I wrote my first book, I would not have dreamed of trying to coach someone on how to write, Christian books for women. So, but now I'm asked to speak on that regularly, but it took time. So allow yourself to think outside of the box and then move into other value bringing steps that you can take in this ladder.
Yeah, because even when Darlene had one book, so so she wrote in 2006. We eventually got it published in 2000. Well, we committed in 2010. Got it published in 2011. It wasn't until the spring of 2012 that we took the rights back. But during that time frame of like 2011, 12, when she had one book out, I know we had free stuff to offer to get people on a list. So we had that bottom tier in place. We had the one book that was there available in paperback and ebook. And then I'm pretty sure you made some money coming in to speak at some places at that point in time even. So even when it was just one book, we still had a value ladder in place.
That's correct. I did speak. As a matter of fact, that's how I got involved in doing what I was doing. And be mindful of this. If you are doing this to serve people and to help people, that's at the forefront of your mind, right? So I had my one book out and I was set up at a museum in Edmond, Oklahoma. And some lady came up to me and asked me if I wanted to speak for their writers group. So I said, sure. I'll do that. And so what I thought to myself was, well, if I was going to a writers group, what would I want to know? What would I want to learn? And so I did a complete dig in talk on the 3 different types of publishing, the differences, the stats. And I ended up talking at this writers group for like 3 hours. They kept asking me question after question, wouldn't let me go. And at the end of it, she came up to me and she said, Darlene, she goes, wow, that was something. She goes, I didn't know you were going to talk on that. And I was clueless. And I just said, well, what did you expect me to talk about? And she said, oh, we just thought you were going to share about your book. So, but what happened is everyone left that meeting so excited, having learned so much, that they told everyone they knew about it. And I started getting phone calls left and right to come speak. So if you want to get into speaking, share your knowledge. Share your knowledge, be knowledgeable, be the expert in your field, whether that be fiction writing, whether that be like Sue is here. So Sue is, uses horses for therapy. I mean, you are the expert in that field. And once you start sharing that knowledge, you're going to be asked to speak on it. So look for opportunities to serve first, make sure that you're giving value, and then it'll come back to you.
Absolutely. So let's move on from this example, because this is using a fiction author as an example. And that's it's actually the harder of the two, because the nonfiction is a little bit easier when we look at an example of a value ladder for nonfiction author. And in this one, I'm going to use the example of my books that I wrote some years ago. And it was the Tips on Tips training system. So I had spent many years in and out of the restaurant industry, and was inspired to write about what it takes to be a professional server, or in my opinion, what it takes. And so we put this book out, and the value ladder for this is a little bit different, but this is kind of how it worked. Was there was first a free report called the Exceptional Restaurant Formula. So that was available as a free report, and we gave it away in either ebook form or for like a $4 shipping and handling charge. We'd send them a hard copy. So there was a free tier of the report, and then there was the tier of the book itself, the Tips on Tips book. And then the next tier up from that was kind of a multiple tier thing where they could get the different types of there's the book and the workbook and the audiobook, the trainer's guidebook, the 52-week scorekeeper, the tips scorekeeper. So there's a lot of components to it. It's a system. And so they could get the whole system, and they could get the pieces multiplied out either 10 times or 20 times in a big package. And so that was, multiple hundreds, 400, 500, 600 for packages that they could get. And then the next tier, or the higher tier one, then was live consulting, where it'd come in to the restaurant and do, like a 2-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour training with the staff. So that is that's a nonfiction example. It's just one type of nonfiction example. There could be numerous other ones that, depending on your field, depending on what you write. So let's talk about why you want to have the value ladder. Well, I think You probably are starting to see it, but I want to run some numbers by you so you can see the power of a value ladder and what it can do for your author business. So here is another core concept that you really need to be aware of, and that's the 80-20 rule. And it's known as the common name is 80-20 principle, 80-20 rule. It's the Pareto, Pareto, I believe. Some Greek guy who came up with this principle that basically says that it's in life there's a split, and it's like for example in the workplace it's like 80% or like 20% of the people will do 80% of the work. I mean, it's not quite that. I'm sure it's not that heavy, but it gets there. If you look in sales organizations, many times you have 20% of the salespeople that make 80% of the sales. It's not uncommon at all for that to happen.
That's especially true, Hun, with volunteer work.
Oh, yeah.
That those numbers fit perfectly in with volunteer. You will have 20% of the people, like say in a church situation or another, doing the majority of the work.
80% of the work. So,
yeah.
Or more. And it's 80-20 isn't a hard and fast thing. It's, it could be 70-30, it could be 90-10, it could be 95-5. But the idea of the Pareto principle is that there's always this disproportionate balance that happens. And let's look at just an example of how this works, just using 80-20 across the board, and how those numbers will help your author business. So here we see with 1,000 equating to, let me go to the next one because I've got them right in here. So let's say you have a something like the fiction example that we showed with Darlene, and we have a free book offer. Maybe it's a free short story. I know that's something, if you have just one book, then certainly you can come up with a short story at least to give away. Just write a little bit more and then have a short story that you give away. So, but you advertise that, you promote it, you put it out there, and let's say over some time, and it could be depending on how much you promote it, it could take a day, a week, a month, a year, who knows? But over time, you get 1,000 people on the list. Now, these are people who've given you their email address and their name in exchange for the free thing, whatever you're giving away. Maybe it's a free book, free short story, a free character development thing. Maybe it's a free report like I was doing with the tips on tips thing. But out of that 1,000 that get on the list, about 20% or 1,000 that get the offer, 20% will opt in to get the freebie. They'll actually make the exchange. So you might get 1,000 people who they either get on the list, or maybe they click on an ad, maybe that you use a Facebook pixel for retargeting purposes. That's something we'll teach on another time. But over the 1,000 that come through, you get 20%, so 200 they opt in to get the freebie. And then using the 80-20 principle again, out of those 200, 20% actually pony up some money and buy the book. Then maybe it's $5 for your ebook, maybe it's $15 for your paperback, whatever it is. So that's only 40 people. I mean, that doesn't look all that great now, but you keep going. So out of 40 people who buy the book, and then you get 20% of those who they start developing into what we call super fans. And super fans are the people who love you. They love your stuff. They love everything about what you write. They are bugging you, sending emails saying, when is that next book coming out? When are you going to, do that program you mentioned? Whatever it is. But they start becoming super fans. And so then you have 8 people. They're buying multiple books, plus, anything and everything that you put out that's at that lower price point. They're buying it all up. They're even, if they see you as you're speaker at this conference that's not too far away, they're going to go. They're going to spend the money to go. But take the 80-20 level one more time, and you get, out of those 8, you get 1 or 2 that those are the folks who are going to maybe book you in for 4 figures or more to come speak at a weekend conference or at an event that's happening of some sort. So that's just how some of the math can work. So even though it seems like a lot is coming through, and well, yeah, it's 1,000, but I mean, you run some cheap ads, you get some organic reach going with your social media. It's not tough to get 1,000 exposures through, and then to develop that. But if you've got a value ladder, you can build up to this. If you don't have a value ladder, you cannot. You are just hoping for those book sales to happen, and then after that, that's it. I mean, if Darlene and I mean, we joke about it, but it's like, if we knew some of this stuff when we took the rights back and we independently published her first book, if we had known just to have an email capture form of somehow. I mean, we gave away 30,000 free copies of Until Forever on that one weekend. Something we don't talk about is, and I looked at the figures not too long ago, is that a couple months later, we did it again. We did another giveaway, and we gave another 20,000 plus away. So it was huge. And,
right.
you know, but that's okay. You know, hindsight is always 20/20 when we look back.
I popped on for a little disclaimer. Dan was talking about running a simple ad. Do not run ads. Do not run any ads until you're taught how to do it. It is basically like flushing money down the toilet if you do not know how to run a proper ad. So just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there.
Yep. And it's definitely something you can use at some point, but yeah, Darlene is totally dead on. Do not run ads unless you have dug in and studied on how to run ads properly, and you know how to do the ads. But there's a whole lot to it. So anyway, so that's the 80-20 rule. And then I think I said in this next slide was this it gets fun if we add a 0 to everything, and we say now 10,000 again. 10,000 exposures over doesn't have to take very long, but you do the math in the 80-20 rule. So 20%, 2,000 get the freebie, 400 end up buying the book, 80 become super fans and start buying everything. You get out of that 10 or 20, somewhere between 10 and 20 are the kind of people who can book you in for those multi-$1,000 events. But then the next tier, if you do another 20%, you've got 2 to 4 people who would be willing to go for that next tier, which could be a cruise. You do a cruise, the author cruise. You've seen those. I've seen those where you could go on a cruise and you could, who was it that had a cruise? It was some Christian author had doing a cruise, but they sell hundreds of seats to those cruises. You could have a couple people that would be willing to pay $10,000 for you to co-write a book with them. Maybe. I mean, it's again, the ideas are totally up to you. It's whatever you want to do. We've tossed this one out about doing a retreat. That's something that we want to do with Author Underground eventually. Once we have the numbers up there, we'll be able to offer that, and we will have people who will drop $1,000 so they can come and spend the weekend. So there's some ideas. There's when you multiply the numbers out, or you can stick with your one book, and you can make your $5 to $10 to $15, and that's it. And I don't think that's what you want to do. So this is why having the value ladder is so very, very important, is because personally, Darlene and I, have all the people that we've met in this publishing field, of all the people, we've met some we've met some big names, people. We had we sat down with one guy who's he's co-written, or what is it? Not ghostwriting, but he was a collaborator on a book that was, like a New York Times best-selling book. He's written or had a hand in writing over 150 books, and he's made a whole lot of money. And I guarantee you, he's got a value ladder that isn't just books. It's a bunch of stuff. Any successful author we know has a value ladder that has multiple components to it that they offer stuff. So again, we believe that most everybody who takes part actively in Author Underground wants to do this as a business. We realize there are a few who don't, that this is just a hobby for you, but we assume that you want to treat this as a business, and if you are going to do that, then you need to have a value ladder in place. And so our question to you is what does your value ladder look like? What do you want it to look like?
Mm-hmm. So I want to pop in here because you may be thinking, well, geesh, I can make it that first one. I can do a story. I can have my book. And oh boy, I don't know about packaging one book in 3 different versions or 4 different versions. But here are some other types of ideas, and Dan has my notes on that. I don't see him on my notepad, so he might have to jump in with some of them. But one of the things that you can do is merchandise. And Terry Barks, she did this at her book signing here a week or so ago. And it was, she had bought notebooks that have the cover of her book on them. So she packaged them in little packages to do that. And I don't know if you could see this, but let me move it up. We got this in the mail today. I particularly like it. It's got our name, 40 Day Media, on it, LLC, and it's got our information on it. And I was like, "Oh, Dan, I like that." And he's like, "We don't need pins." I'm like, "Yeah, that's true." But that's a cool idea. Or bookmarks, or you can do all kinds of merchandise. Dan, what else is on my list there? Just
we had one of our newer authors that we're working with. His book hasn't sold much of nothing. He had published with another publisher here in not too long ago, and actually is already deciding to pull it and wants us to help him to get republished but he was already this guy really wants to sell his books, and he's very committed, and he's just kind of like drifting, doing things, trying different things. But one of the things he did was he printed out the door hangers for his book. He had hats done that said, it had his book title on the hat. And he really wants to promote his books, but he just didn't know kind of what to do. And so we've been working with him and giving him some direction. And I just pulled those notes. So we talked about the multiple versions. Something we didn't hit on was the fact that even at that second tier, when you've just got your book, you actually have more than your book, because you have your paperback, you have your ebook, and that's like your Kindle, and then you have the ebook that's available outside of Kindle, outside of Amazon, and then if you want, you can have a hardback of that same exact book, and then with a little more effort, you can have an audiobook. So you can have 5 versions of that one book. And when you have fans, when you have people who are becoming fans and becoming familiar with your work, you will get people who will buy. They'll get the ebook, they'll get the paperback, and then they'll get the audiobook, because they become super fans. As long as you are bringing enough people into the mix, they will do that. And then if you take that one book and with the 5 versions, and now you expand it to another language, now you're 5 more versions in that other language in another market or 2. So there's a lot of potential with just the one book. Like I said, when we started with Darlene, we had the one book available there, we had a freebie available, and then we had the ability for her to be in speaking in groups. And then So that was the start of a value ladder there. What do we got on the list here? Write more books.
Workshops.
Workshops. Yeah, workshops.
Right. So I do individual coaching, but you might want to just put on a little workshop about how you wrote your book, or I mean, these are things that people may pay money for. Just think creatively. What else is on there? We were just trying to come up with some ideas. Yeah,
we pretty much covered it. But again, let's stress that it's not, this isn't the limit of it. It's whatever works with your value ladder. You talked about merchandise. One of the things that is a real no-brainer for children's books is if there's a character, then you have a custom plush version of the character made. So you have a stuffed animal or a stuffed version of your main character from your book. And there's companies, we've got information on the companies that will do that for you. And you got to buy probably 500 at a time to make it okay for price. But that is something that can be part of your value ladder.
Yeah, Sue mentioned for nonfiction writers, you can do an online course. That's absolutely something you can do. Yep. You can do webinars. You can do podcasts. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. We've done online courses for publishing. Now all of that material is in our Author Underground, so we moved that over. But we've definitely really been thinking a lot over the years on how we can expand just being an author. So
that is what we want to think about, or what we want you to think about, is leaving today's session, is what does your author value ladder look like, and just start playing around with it.